What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Keegan Martin, the Director of Education for the Brand X Method. And today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about the concept of kids and lifting weights. This is something that we see go wrong inside of this industry constantly, is coaches loading children when they're not ready for it, or holding kids back when they're absolutely ready to lift weights because of the scary factor of potential risk of injury, or they're assuming that, it can negatively impact their growth, which is a myth, by the way. So let's talk a little bit about it, because the big question is really, should children be lifting weights? And to answer that question, the answer is yes, kids should be lifting weights, and no, kids should not be lifting weights. And now I know that's really confusing, but let's set a little bit of context around that and start to dive into when and why, and kind of how it becomes appropriate for a child to start to lift weights. This is a really heavily talked about subject inside of training kids. And I think it's probably at the forefront of most people's minds when they think about training children is, okay, when do I start to load a child up and positively impact their strength? Well, first off, note this, is that young kids don't develop strength in the same manner that you and I do as adults. Young children develop strength through impacting what's called motor control. So repetition, time under tension, really tempoed and slowed movements where they're myelinating a certain motor pattern and becoming extremely efficient and making that firing of that pattern extremely effective. The more they do that, the stronger they actually get at that movement. Interestingly enough, they don't have the developmental factors that are needed to gain strength in the same way that you and I do, through breaking down muscle tissue, through impacting the central nervous system. So taking let's say a 7-year-old and having them perform a 1 rep max deadlift, or a 3 rep max deadlift, or a 5 rep max deadlift is not positively impacting their strength. What is positively impacting their strength is teaching them how to hinge properly, and then having them do hundreds of repetitions of that, pausing inside of the hinge at their deepest stretch possible while holding good positions, tempoing and slowing down motions, and just being extremely repetitive of that movement. Why? Because when they do get the proper hormones and their systems fully developed so that they can express max contractions later on, they're going to be extremely effective and extremely efficient at the motor pattern that's needed to perform that max contraction. So when they're on the barbell, now they've done thousands of repetitions and they have thousands of minutes of time under tension doing that specific movement. All of a sudden you sprinkle on a little bit of testosterone and boom, their strength numbers go through the roof. So yes, it absolutely is appropriate for kids to lift weights when they're both biologically ready for it, their systems are fully developed, and their movement is ready for it. Okay, and what I mean by that is, at the Brand X Method, we always want to see what kids can express physically, never being surpassed by their movement, and we always want to see their movement exceed what they can physically express. So what that looks like is practicing repetitions and getting extremely good at those repetitions and that movement prior to loading that movement up. So kids, should they be lifting weights? Yes and no. You have to look into when it's actually appropriate for them to do that. And if you guys want to find out all of that information on how and when that's actually appropriate, that can be found inside of our PYCC, or Professional Youth Coach course. If you guys go to thebrandxmethod.com, you can find it there. Make sure that you guys follow our Instagram and keep up to date with all the content on there, because I'm often on there as well. We'll be talking a little bit about the movement skills series coming up here. So stay tuned on that platform as well. Have a great day, guys.